If you came from Nikon film bodies, early DSLRs, or old f-mount primes, modern mirrorless can sometimes feel too clean, too electronic, and too perfect. But hidden inside the Z system are a few lenses that bring back the feeling Nikon users remember, not by copying the past, but by making the camera feel simple, useful, and personal again. You are watching Alt Buzz Lenses. If that sounds like your kind of channel, subscribe now. We are just getting started. Today, 5 Nikon Z lenses that prove modern glass can still have soul. At number 5, we have the Nikon NIKKOR Z 28mm f2.8 SE. There is something quietly deliberate about this lens. Nikon did not have to give it the SE treatment. They could have released a plain black barrel, called it a budget wide angle, and moved on. Instead, they reached back into their own design history and pulled out something that looks like it belongs on a film body. The silver accent ring, the slim profile, the restrained elegance of a lens that knows exactly what it is. That choice tells you something about who this lens is for. It is not for the photographer chasing maximum performance. It is for the photographer who still remembers what a camera looked like before everything turned matte, black, and clinical. On a ZF or Zfc, it does not sit on the camera so much as it settles into it. Like the two were always meant to be paired. That is not an accident. Nikon designed this lens to complete a feeling, not just fill a focal length gap. Pick up that combination and the weight is right, the proportions are right, and the whole thing communicates something that a heavier, more serious lens simply cannot. That photography can be easy, light, and enjoyable without sacrificing the results you care about. As a performer, it is honest. It is not trying to be the most technically impressive wide angle in the Z lineup. Modern S-line glass will out-resolve it, out-correct it, and outlast it in demanding conditions. Street photography, travel, daily carry, environmental portraits, quiet documentary work, this is its world. And in that world, it is genuinely good company. The rendering is clean without being sterile, the autofocus is quiet and reliable, and 28mm gives you just enough width to work in tight spaces without pushing the perspectives so wide that the image loses its sense of intimacy. What this lens does best is lower the barrier between you and the photograph. It removes the feeling that shooting requires preparation, intention, or a particular kind of seriousness. You put it on the camera, you walk out the door, and the camera becomes part of how you move through the day. Old Nikon feeling was never only about optical character or mechanical aperture rings. Sometimes it was just about a small prime that made the camera feel easy, and this lens brings that back through size, simplicity, and design confidence. At number 4, we have the Nikon NIKKOR Z 26mm f2.8. No retro badge here. No silver ring, no design nod to the past. Just a lens so slim, it barely adds anything to the camera body. And somehow, that ends up saying more than any styling choice could. There is a particular kind of honesty in a lens that does not dress itself up. It connects through function, through the simple argument that the best camera is the one you have with you. And the best lens is the one that makes carrying the camera feel like nothing at all. Part of what made older Nikon shooting feel personal was the camera's ability to stay with you, not just for assignments, not just for planned shoots with a bag full of gear, but for the ordinary Tuesday afternoon that unacceptably becomes something worth photographing. Small f-mount primes made that possible. They meant the camera came along. And once the camera came along, photographs happened that would never have existed otherwise. Photographs that never get planned in advance but end up mattering most in the long run. The Z26 f2.8 is the mirrorless answer to that same logic. Genuinely compact, light enough to forget it is there, and practical for travel, family moments, street shooting, and daily documentary work. On a ZF or a Z5, it transforms the camera from a system body into something that fits in a jacket pocket, with enough room left over to feel comfortable. 26mm is a slightly unconventional focal length, not quite a 24, not quite a 28, and that is part of what makes it interesting. wide enough to work confidently in tight environments, just narrow enough to feel natural for casual portraits and street moments without distorting the subject. The honest limitation is real. This is not a fast lens, and background separation is modest. But old Nikon feeling was not only about brass aperture rings or the romance of film. Sometimes it was about having a camera small enough that you actually brought it with you. If you enjoy lens stories that connect modern gear with the history behind it, subscribe to Alt Buzz Lenses. Every video on this channel is written for photographers who care about how lenses feel, not just what they score on a chart. Hit subscribe and stay with us through the top 3. At number 3, we have the Nikon NIKKOR Z 50mm f1.8s. Every serious camera system in every generation has needed one thing above everything else: a 50mm lens that earns its place. Not by being exotic, not by being optically eccentric or romantically flawed, just by being right. There is a reason photographers across every era of the craft have returned to this focal length with a loyalty that no other length quite generates. It sees the world in a way that feels honest, close to how the eye attends to a scene, without the compression of a longer lens flattening everything into theater. The Z50 f1.8s does not try to look like the past. It is larger than the compact 50mm primes that older Nikon users carried on film bodies and early DSLRs, more modern in every dimension, from its optical design to its autofocus motor to its coating technology. But what it carries forward is something much older than its construction date. It carries the conviction that a 50mm lens can be the center of a system, not a specialty lens, not a statement piece, the center. The one you come back to when everything else feels like too much. Sharp in low light, reliable for portraits, versatile enough to handle whatever the day demands. At f1.8, subject separation is genuinely pleasing, natural, and proportionate in a way that suits the focal length. The autofocus is fast, quiet, and confident in difficult conditions. And the build quality communicates that Nikon treated this as a serious lens, not a kit-level afterthought, packaged at an accessible price to fill a gap in the lineup. What makes this lens feel connected to older Nikon values is the role it plays. The Z50 f1.8s is the lens you reach for when you stop thinking about what to bring and start thinking about where to go. That used to be what the best normal primes did for Nikon photographers in every era. This one does exactly the same thing, in a body that belongs entirely to the present trends. And it simply proves that Nikon still knows how to make the ordinary 50mm feel serious. At number 2, we have the Nikon NIKKOR Z 85mm f1.8s. Nikon has always made portrait lenses. That sentence is easy to say and easy to overlook. But spend any real time with the history of Nikon glass and a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Generation after generation, the 85mm has been one of the places where Nikon's optical identity shows up most clearly, not through technical extremes, through purpose, through the quiet argument that a lens built for faces carries a different kind of responsibility than a lens built for landscapes or architecture. Nikon understood that argument early, and they have not forgotten it. The Z85 f1.8s carries that purpose into the mirrorless era without apology. There is no retro styling here, no design gesture toward older glass. What this lens offers instead is the quiet confidence of a lens that knows what it was built for, and then does exactly that with a consistency that working portrait photographers find genuinely reassuring. Put it in front of a face in natural light, and the result does not require explanation. It simply looks right. Sharp at its widest aperture in a way that rewards rather than punishes. Subject isolation that feels natural, not algorithmic. Rendering that flatters the subject without softening the image into artificiality. At 85mm on a full-frame body, the working distance is generous enough to feel comfortable for the subject, and controlled enough to give the photographer room to direct without hovering. The Z version delivers all of it with the added benefit of fast, accurate eye detection autofocus that older portrait glass could never offer. And that combination alone makes it one of the most complete portrait lenses Nikon has produced in any era. What this lens reminds you is that old Nikon values were never only about mechanical feel or vintage aesthetics. They were also about optical intention, lenses built with a specific human purpose in mind. The honest limitation is that it does not carry the tactile experience of older Nikon portrait lenses. No aperture ring, no sense of mechanical history in the hand. But for the photographer who wants Nikon's portrait tradition delivered with full modern capability, this lens earns its position without compromise. At number 1, we have the Nikon NIKKOR Z 40mm f2 SE. Everything on this list has been building toward this. Not because this is Nikon's most technically perfect Z prime. Not because it outresolves the S-line lenses above it. It earns this position for a reason that is harder to quantify, but impossible to fake. It makes a modern Nikon camera feel like something you actually want to pick up. And in a mirrorless era that has sometimes prioritized capability over connection, that quality is rarer than it should be. The SE treatment here is not decorative, slim enough to carry without thinking about it, light enough to leave on the camera between uses, staled in a way that transforms a Zf from a capable mirrorless body into something that looks and feels personal, a camera that belongs to someone, not just a camera that was purchased. Every photographer who has ever loved a camera knows the difference between a tool they respect and a camera they are genuinely attached to. The Z40 f2 SE consistently produces the second thing, at a price point that does not require a serious financial commitment to find out whether it works for you. As a performing lens, it covers the ground that matters most for daily shooting. Street photography, casual portraits, travel, family moments. The kind of unhurried everyday documentation that rarely makes camera review videos but fills the hard drives of photographers who shoot most honestly. 40mm is close enough to 50 to feel familiar, and slightly wider to feel generous without pushing toward the visual language of a dedicated wide angle. The rendering at f2 is clean and natural, with subject separation that feels proportionate rather than exaggerated. The autofocus is quick and reliable enough for candid shooting and moving subjects, and close focus performance is solid for the kind of casual detail shots that come up naturally in travel and daily work. The honest limitation is the same one that runs through the whole SE range. S-line lenses are more polished, more precisely corrected, and more technically complete in demanding conditions. This lens trades some of that technical ceiling for the balance of size, look, price, usability, and feel that older Nikon users once found in compact F-mount primes, a balance that is genuinely difficult to manufacture in the modern era, where the incentive to build larger and more ambitious lenses is constant. And here it is, in a Z-mount body with autofocus, full-frame coverage, and design language that connects this generation of Nikon cameras to every generation that came before it. This is the Nikon Z lens that understands the assignment, modern enough to perform, small enough to carry, and classic enough to make the camera feel like something worth picking up every single day. If you enjoy classic lens stories, modern glass with real character, and the kind of camera content that respects your history with this hobby, subscribe to Alt Buzz Lenses. New videos written for photographers who still care about how lenses feel. And if this one resonated, share it with someone who still misses their old F-mount glass. Nikon Z is sharper, quieter, and more precise than any system the brand has built before it. But precision was never the only thing older Nikon users were chasing. They were chasing the feeling of a camera that belonged to them. Some Z lenses still carry that. The ones that do are worth knowing.